Welcome to the Extreme Underground, the show where I take a look at some of the most disturbing and controversial films in the world of cinema. Today we'll be talking about Hidden in the Woods. Directed by Patricio Valladares, this is a Chilean film from 2012 that's based on true events. I tried to track down what events actually inspired this, but came up with nothing. But what I did find, in a similar vein to how Funny Game's director redid his own movie, Patricio redid this movie only 2 years later as an American remake that stars Michael Biehn and William Forsythe. While I haven't watched the full film myself, the clips that I saw and the trailer that I watched make it look like it's almost a shot-for-shot remake. Another thing worth noting, especially when it comes to Chilean extreme or disturbing movies, this film stars Daniel Antivello, who some people may remember as Juan from the Chilean film that people have dubbed equally as disturbing as a Serbian film, Trauma. I've done a full review and breakdown of that one. Link is in the description and in the card. But talking about this movie, I'm gonna summarize it quickly with minimal spoilers, then we'll go into a full spoiler breakdown and follow that up with my final thoughts, just breaking down whether or not I thought it was disturbing and what was done well and what wasn't. There's two sisters who grow up in an abusive household. The father sleeps with one of his daughters and has a baby. That baby is raised in a shed as kind of this feral incest child. We fast forward, the girls and their brother are grown, their father is taken to prison, and now they are on the run to try and start a new life. Unfortunately, their uncle Costello, who's a drug lord, is looking for the drugs that are owed to him by the two sisters' father. The uncle is super creepy, so he's willing to take either the drugs or the girls, and we'll leave it at that. Now, if you're interested in spoilers and you want to hear how everything plays out, follow me to the breakdown. This movie kicks off with one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to filmmaking, which is showing one of the scenes from later on in the movie right at the beginning, without context. We see a girl get shot in the side of the head as she screams. Now going back in time, we're going to September 1987, where a woman is being drowned in the sink for supposedly cheating on her husband. The two children, Anna and Annie, wait outside as their father kills their mother. Fast forward 11 years, we're in 1998. The girls are just sitting on the steps of their home playing with dolls. The older sister is saying like they're too old to play with dolls, and they go off to play as their uncle arrives, Uncle Costello. He's a super creepy dude. He's eyeing the girls and he's talking to the father like, look at how cute your girls are, like keep them by your side at all times because your oldest looks like a model, and he's just so weird. It appears that the father runs drugs or sells drugs on behalf of Uncle Costello, but that was kind of lost in the mix. I couldn't tell if he was just buying the drugs himself or if he was actually dealing them to other people. It is worth noting that when the girls are playing, they're talking about the boogeyman, which we find out is a representation of a creepy man that comes into their room while they sleep to molest them. We find out right now that that's their father. He's a drunk and he rapes his kid. Fast forward 1 year, she has the baby in a really awkward, disgusting scene where she's just standing up and the baby like drops into a bucket. And also you need to think like these are young girls, like this is fucked. Fast forward again, we're in 2009. This child is now kind of like this rabid kid living in a shed. He's fed nothing but meat. His name is Manuel. He's just like this product of incest, so he's deformed. We flash forward once again to 2010 where the father is raping his daughter. This time Anna and Annie fight back. One of the girls runs, she's caught, and she's put in the shed with Manuel. Fortunately, some cops have heard rumblings of some domestic abuse happening over here, so they make their way to this house and they immediately know something's wrong. They draw their guns, the father busts out a chainsaw, and we have a pretty epic showdown. The female cop hears the girls and runs to save them, but the other cop is not so lucky. He gets hacked to bits with this chainsaw. It's bloody, it's gruesome, it's pretty solid, and the woman cop comes back and shoots him. Unfortunately, somehow he is still able to kill her and chop her up with a chainsaw. This is one of those situations where you're like, there's no way this is based on a true story. And if you know of it, like let me know in the comments. I'm really interested to know like how real is this? Because some of these situations are just so far-fetched that I just don't know how it's possible to get attacked by a chainsaw if you have a gun and you're shooting the guy with the chainsaw. The father, now bleeding, realizes like he's in deep shit. So he calls Uncle Costello and says like, yo, you need to get me out of here. I need to get to the train station. Costello sends over his men because they want to obviously get the remaining drugs and make sure that their whole operation isn't screwed over. The father makes his way to the train station, but obviously he looks like a wreck, so somebody approaches him and asks him if he needs help, and he pulls out a shotgun and shoots him on sight. So he gets arrested and put in jail. While the father is at the train station, the daughters and the son go and hide in the woods. And now, even more aggravated by the father's actions, the uncle issues some goons on the inside of the jail to take the man out, but not before trying to get the drug locations. The girls are now trying to get far away from their house, so they're hitchhiking. They're picked up by some dude who's ultra creepy, and then he decides to pull over and ask one of the girls for a treat, like he's looking for a blowjob or something. She hits him right in the dick, and yeah, don't be fucking creepy. Finally, Anna, Annie, and Manuel make their way to a cabin in the woods where they're safe for the meantime. It now cuts back to jail where the dad is being awkwardly attacked in the shower. This scene is really poorly edited, but there is a scuffle. Something is happening, and the father comes out victorious via shanking. One of the daughters decides to go back to town to like get food, but she's just like eating garbage in an alley. And I'm sorry I don't know their names, but they're both Anna and Annie. I don't know which one is which personally. But anyway, she's eating garbage. A guy comes up to her realizing like she doesn't have any money. He's like, if you want to make some money, you could just like blow me. She takes him up on the offer, buys a bunch of food for the family, and she realizes this is her calling, especially at the moment. So she becomes a hooker, and we have a little montage of her just giving a bunch of blowjobs and just making money. Now this is where things start to go a little bit more downhill for our trio, as Manuel decides to go for a walk while his sister is sleeping, and he sees some backpackers getting stoned by the river, one of which is actually played by the director himself. It is worth noting this is like the first shot that we really see of Manuel's face like in full form, and it doesn't look very good. It's a poor makeup job, and it did take me out of the movie for sure. Now we cut back to the other sister that's not sleeping, but sleeping around. She's sharing her like past history with the boogeyman, which is certainly something strange and something a John would remember, which comes into play later on. Back at the backpackers, Manuel has blown his cover. The backpackers are onto him, and they follow him through the forest back to the cabin in the woods, where his sister is just standing by the window washing herself. These guys are creeping, and they decide to make their way into the house and force themselves on her. She bites one of the guys' necks off, and there's blood spraying, and then Manuel stabs one of the guys or like hits him with wood. It's hard to see because the editing is really shit here. It's like really jarring, but at the end of the day, both men are dead. They eat some of them, they bury the rest. Now all these worlds start to collide as the man who was just with the one sister in the hotel room is at the bar drinking because his wife is leaving him because she found out that he was sleeping with hookers. At the same time, the uncle's henchmen are at the bar. They're causing their own kind of shit, and they're asking about the two sisters. The man just furious with the girl and how she just ruined his life. He offers up the information. They drive out to the location, and they end up just shooting him just for the fuck of it. Now this whole crew of mobsters are at the cabin. They find the trio, and they dunk one of the girls' heads into the sink, much like it was replicating what happened to their mother back in the day. But what they're doing is they're trying to get some information. They're trying to figure out where the hell their drugs are. Meanwhile, back in prison, now surviving a shanking, our seemingly invincible father has now escaped jail by climbing underneath the fence and rising up like a zombie from the other side. Almost like this is some kind of redemption arc for this rapist murderer. Back at the cabin, the men are still trying to get information out of the girls. They smash their hands with a hammer while both sisters are being raped by the mobsters. Manuel is freaking out outside. He doesn't know what to do, but he tries his best. He comes in, he bites one of the guy's arms, and then he runs off. This causes a little bit of a distraction, so one of the guys gets his neck bitten off and she shoots him, and the girls are able to escape the house, and a chase ensues. While looking for the girls, one of the henchmen accidentally shoots their main leader guy, the guy who's been in charge of this whole situation. Manuel decides to eat some of this guy, but does leave him alive and just carries on. This is when the dad finally shows up, again trying to have a heroic moment. He finds the half-dead mobster and says nobody fucks with his girls. And then the father finishes the job. The girls, now heavily armed with guns from the mobsters they've just taken out, make their way to Uncle Costello's house, where the uncle reveals a big twist to the movie, which is he was the one that their mother was cheating on their father with, and that he is actually their father, and the father that we know in the movie is actually unrelated to these girls. The dad shows up, there's a gunfight, he shoots the uncle, and he also shoots one of the daughters and Manuel, and then starts beating the other daughter. This is where we get the shot from the beginning where the uncle shoots her ear off, shoots the father, and you think that he's dead, but he's able to hold the gun between his feet and kill the uncle for good. Now it's just like a scene of just like a bunch of bloody bodies just squirming around, and you're trying to figure out who's gonna make it out of this. And the girls leave with Manuel. They go to a beach and they're just living their best life, cleaning off, and you're like, okay, freedom, finally. And then it cuts back to the bloody bodies squirming on the floor again. No one's actually gotten out alive. They're likely going to die there on the floor. Now, time for my final thoughts. This one's a little weird because, well, it has all the makings of a very disturbing, extreme movie because there's rape, there's incest, there's feral kids, there's lots of splatter going on. But I think the way things were portrayed just seemed a little bit too far-fetched, even though this is apparently based on a true case. But I also didn't like the style of the film. The editing was way too jarring. The camera's just all over the place. The cutting is way too quick, and you don't even know what's going on half the time. The pacing is also strange because there's so many jump forwards in time, and then you're jumping between the jail and you're jumping between the sisters, and we're jumping between Manuel doing his thing and then following the mobsters. Like, you're just constantly jumping all over the place. And while some would say that this is a faster paced movie, it didn't seem like that. It actually sounds more fast paced talking about it than it actually was to watch it. This movie's about like an hour and 45 minutes ish, and despite everything going on, I was still bored. However, I did like the acting. I thought the girls did an excellent job. The father was pretty convincing, and Uncle Costello was just like this piece of shit scumbag. You could totally hate on basically everybody except the girls in this movie. But unfortunately, Manuel felt like such an out of place character. His makeup didn't look very good. It was almost comical. The makeup is just terrible. And maybe some of the things that I'm talking about is why there is an American remake, and I'm definitely interested in exploring that maybe in a few months. At the end of the day, it's not a terrible movie, but it's certainly not the most disturbing. There are some elements, and if you haven't seen it, sure, you can check it out, but it's just below average for me. So I'm gonna give this 2 randomly shot bartenders out of 5. As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. And if you've seen the remake, let me know what you thought about that one and if this kind of lines up, because it looks like it does. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to check it out for yourself, I'll have a link in the description where you can find it. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel, stay up to date with everything on the Extreme Underground.